Doesn't it feel like everyone loves Resident Evil 2 more than 1 or 3? It's the best selling of the original trilogy by a couple million, so I guess that makes sense, more people played it. And I think if you ask most game journalists what the best original game is, they'll say RE2. It's just not a controversial statement to say that RE2 is the best. It took what the original did and made it bigger, far better graphics, better delivery on story points, better interaction between main characters, the addition of emotional connections between Leon and Ada, and Claire and Sherry, plus the incredible soundtrack. I'm not here to debate RE2 being a great game, or an objective improvement over the first in several ways. I'm here to instead explain my own, I guess, contrarian feeling that RE2 is my least favorite. It has been since the day it came out. Get ready for a long personal story, and not so much of an analysis. I just want you to see where I'm coming from. When I was a kid, I bought gaming magazines all the time, and there was a GamePro issue that had a strategy guide for the new hit horror game Resident Evil. It's probably not the images I'm showing you right now, but the strategy guide talked about how to get out of the mansion, solve a lot of puzzles, and make it through the guardhouse taking down Plant 42. Hilariously, it said something like, "There's not much more of the game left to get through after this, so you're on your own," when there's another half of the game from this point. I repeatedly read this part of the magazine for months, not even trying to rent the game myself, because I didn't have a PlayStation yet. It wasn't until Christmas of 1996 that I finally got one, all because I wanted Twisted Metal 2, the only game a kid could ever need, really. Eventually I worked up the courage to go to Blockbuster and rent the most terrifying game ever, Resident Evil. My sister and I played it in the dark, sitting right in front of the TV, and what an experience it was. My sister and I didn't have a good relationship back then, and this was the first thing that brought us together. Resident Evil is kinda, I guess, the defining connection between us. She used to sit there and watch me play for days, too scared to play on her own, eventually finding the courage to. We made our moms sit and watch the game, we laughed together at the funny dialogue and the random audio bugs that would occur since the rented copy was scratched. Barry would say "ud" instead of blood, so when we found the dining room blood stain, every time Barry said, "I hope this isn't Chris's ud," we laughed so much we cried. However, with a scratched disc, certain parts of the game simply wouldn't load. For me, the game would freeze every time I opened the door to the snake room. This haunting door with a bloody handprint next to it, summoning me with a low camera angle, I just couldn't get in no matter what I did. So for months, renting the game over and over, I would just play all the way up to the snake room, see the game freeze, and start over. That's how I played Resident Evil as a kid. Finally, I got my parents to buy me this $60 video game, and I played it to completion over and over, speedrunning it under 3 hours to unlock the rocket launcher. I thought about Resident Evil all day, every day. I used to close my eyes during school and imagine each room from every camera angle, playing from beginning to end in my mind. I swear to you, this is not a joke. I got so good at the game, my friends could block the TV and I could make it all the way to the guardhouse before falling apart. Resident Evil was everything to me. So imagine how exciting it was to see the first preview of Resident Evil 2, now known as Resident Evil 1.5. The cancelled version of the sequel starring Elza Walker and Leon Kennedy in a dark and creepy police station. The video demo was on a disc included in official PlayStation Magazine, and it looked amazing. You could shoot zombies in half and they would crawl at you. The setting was so different. I watched this video probably 100 times. At the height of my Resident Evil obsession, they released the director's cut of the original game, which was supposed to have gorier cutscenes, but didn't for reasons we weren't aware of at the time. The music was all messed up too. But the three main attractions were the free demo of RE2, the arranged puzzle mode giving us a new campaign experience, and the new camera angles. Yes, for all you fixed camera haters, a selling point of the director's cut was the alternate artistic framing of different rooms. That's how much we cared about the art style of survival horror. Crap on it all you want because you don't like tank controls, but there's a lot of people who value the cinematography of these experiences, and there always will be. The free demo of RE2 was a big deal, allowing us to play all the way from the opening streets to the police station. You could reach the STARS office on the second floor, and that was it. It was amazing and left us hungry for more. I seriously used to stand in this hallway and just shoot the rest of my bullets at the corpses on the ground because I didn't want to stop playing. This was September of 1997. There were 4 more months until the release of RE2, and boy oh boy, what an event it was. RE2 was huge, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, best game of the generation, until Metal Gear Solid came out, of course. And in anticipation of RE2's release, I invited my best friend over to stay the night at my house. We were gonna play it all night, see everything there is to see, with my sister of course. It was a great plan, Friday night, stay up late and play all weekend. But the night before, my dad gave me some bad news. I don't talk much about my personal life on this channel, but I'm gonna share a moment with you. In 1998, I was not doing well in school. I was becoming a rebellious prick that just wanted to listen to rock music and play video games. Shocker, I know. And because of my declining grades, my father took it upon himself to book me for a private evaluation. He scheduled it for the morning after RE2 came out, which meant my friend couldn't stay the night with me, and I would have to spend hours of my weekend taking tests. My mother was strongly against this, but it was already done. The game came out, I played it to completion that night with my friend, and he had to go home. I finished both A and B scenarios, and then I went to bed, waiting to be evaluated at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday by some scam business. 4 hours. It was a 4-hour exam on a little kid that only wanted to be at home playing the game he was most excited for in the world. Talk about Sabotage. I was sitting in the examination room, alone, with stacks of paper in front of me, while I had the Prima official strategy guide on my lap under the table to read it between every question. I didn't want to be there. I was pissed off. I resented my father, and to all the parents out there, that's not the best condition to test the intelligence of your child. But the stuff they were quizzing me on was so basic it was laughable. Like 2 + 2 = 4 levels of easy. One part had me sitting in front of a computer identifying which picture didn't belong, and the choices were a lion, a puma, a tiger, and an airplane. It was insulting. So despite my strong desire not to be there, I still flew through the tests. But somewhere around hour 3, I just couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to go home, so I just started answering questions randomly, whatever got me out of there faster. I rushed the final parts and I got the hell out. Little did I know that there would be consequences to my actions. My father didn't tell me what this was all leading to. Turns out my failure on the final subjects, to the organization, meant that I should be enrolled in their special after-school program from 7 to 8 p.m., or 6 to 8 p.m., I don't remember how long it was, charging my family hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars a month to teach me skills I already had, but I just failed because I wanted to go home and play Resident Evil 2. Thus began a 9-month program where I had to go to this stupid school at night, sitting next to kids who genuinely failed these exams because of whatever problem they had, while I got angrier and angrier and angrier. I started lashing out, committing acts of vandalism, tearing up the chairs with scissors, cutting up their computer software and books, killing the plants in the waiting room, and stealing all their books one by one. I was a little kid, I didn't know how else to protest what I was being subjected to. I was supposed to be in this course for years, until I made a deal with my parents to let me go to a rock concert if I got my grades up, which I did immediately, and my dad realized that his son could learn just fine. All I gotta do is decide I want to. The after-school courses were canceled, and my parents gained a much better understanding of me and what I needed as I continued through school. But back to Resident Evil 2. Yeah, that was all a tangent, but it severely impacted my enjoyment of a game I'd been eagerly anticipating for a year. I can't deny that part of the reason RE2 is my least favorite is because my initial connection to it was sabotaged by what I went through. But even the experience of the game itself was kind of a letdown, and that's because of the long drawn out process I had with the first game, and how difficult it was for me to pass. learning how to play a new game that was totally different from anything I'd ever played before it. Coming from Twisted Metal, Super Mario, Streets of Rage, Mortal Kombat, Command & Conquer, a slow horror title where you're exploring a mansion, getting lost, solving puzzles, and surviving on very few resources was a shocking experience for me. It took a while to adjust. Plus, there was the time required to learn the art of navigating fixed camera and understanding tank controls. The months I spent playing RE1 forced me to learn and adjust the way I think. It was a cerebrally challenging game. And because I'd gotten so good at playing Resident Evil, I breezed through RE2. It was so easy. I had so much ammo, and it felt like the monsters did far less damage to me than the ones in RE1. I mean, hunters could take your head off in a single swipe. The lickers of RE2 barely did anything to me. The mansion was a more difficult map to figure out than the RPD, as amazing as it was. Before I knew it, RE2 was over. I don't know if I died even once. Maybe in the final tyrant fight in Scenario B. But when it was all over, I didn't feel like I got as much out of it as I wanted. It felt like a big blockbuster action experience, and less like the scary, challenging horror adventure of the original. I still loved it, I played it a bunch, I had an RE2 t-shirt, I bought the action figures. It just didn't blow me away. But you know what did? Nemesis. As soon as I started seeing previews for RE3, a hype started building in me unlike anything I'd known before. The return of Jill Valentine, who I adored from the first game. The ability to actually explore the streets of Raccoon City, and the introduction of the Nemesis, an enemy that would stalk you and appear where you least expected him. Taking the concept of Mr. X from RE2's B scenario and fleshing it out into a full game antagonist. I plastered my entire bedroom wall with articles and posters from any magazine I could buy, and when it finally came out, I had a group of friends come over to see it, chugging soda all night, playing Mercenaries mode. It was a far more memorable experience than RE2, not just because I wasn't rushed into a learning center the next morning, but because RE3 shook up the gameplay in new ways and really got me thinking. To this day, RE3 is my favorite of the trilogy. It's not scary like RE1, but it takes the Hollywood action-adventure idea of RE2 and improves on it with much better exploration, puzzles, and a central antagonist that could ambush you at any moment. Anyway, I hope this video has helped you understand my experience and my perspective. RE2 is a classic, and I respect anyone who says it's the best of the series. I don't feel like that, I have my reasons, and I think in particular RE3 deserves far more respect than it gets. But yeah, of course RE2 is the big dog of the trilogy, and for good reason. Thanks so much for listening to my story. Let's hope we get an original Resident Evil game soon, and that it's actually good. Later.